I've started the recording. And now I'm going to try and get us to be on Facebook.
Okay.
Oh, I got to say where it's going to go.
Right.
You want to peek? I can see you on Facebook.
All right. Uh-oh. Yeah, I guess I better not. Since
Oh, it says preview. Oh, I still have to tell it to do another thing.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm not oh no, this is it's asking me to do too many things it didn't ask me to do before.
Uh-oh.
It wanted a title.
Oh, seriously?
Oh, yeah. It's like, I thought I told it to go live, then it says, where do you want it to go? I told it where I want it to go. Okay.
All right. We're now at 7 o'clock.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our maiden voyage of Speculative Sundays poetry reading series. I'm delighted to have you here. I've got people to let in. Okay, they're in. My name is Akua Leslie Hope, and I greet you from the ancestral land of the Onondaga, also known as the Seneca, keepers of the western door in the area currently called the Southern Finger Lakes region of New York State. Here, the hour is 7 p.m. I pay respect to the Seneca people, past, present, and future. Let me be resonant with the process of dismantling colonialist amnesia. I offer gratitude to those who have gone before, by whose courage and resilience I was created and sustained. My heartfelt concern goes to our sistren and brethren in the Western United States, particularly those in California and Oregon. May all resolve well for everyone. So, Speculative Sundays poetry reading series. This is our first one. We have a wonderful guest today. But I wanted to take a moment to find out a little bit about you, dear audience. And so, do you know about speculative poetry? For me, it's an ever-evolving quest in understanding. Speculative poetry takes many forms, and it includes, all right, here's my list today: alternate history, cryptids, monsters, cyberpunk, dystopia, fairy tales, fabulism, fantasy, folklore, futurism, horror, magic, mythology, occult, paranormal, robots, science fiction, shifters, slipstream, solar punk, space opera, superheroes, supernatural, sword and sorcery, sword and soul, steampunk, time travel, post-apocalyptic, and weird. Got a poll. Do you like speculative poetry? And what's your favorite kind? Let me know. Hopefully you all see the poll and you'll respond.
Of course,
Okay.
I should probably respond since I'm actually.
Did you respond also?
Give me a second.
Okay, I'll give you a second because more information is more. I hope to do this across the various readings and see what the audience thinks over time. And maybe they change their minds about the kind that they like.
Yeah,
And
I don't think I can. So let's.
okay, sorry. Well, there's a maybe and a yes for if they like speculative poetry. And the choices are science fiction and mythology. The other many varied forms did not get a vote. So thank you everyone for that. I'm going to end the poll now. Oh, I can share the results so you can see them. And now I'll stop.
Akua, Vince here. I didn't realize
Hi.
I didn't realize you could do more than one for the end. So I would have had a different answer if I knew that.
Oh, you would have. Okay. Well, nice to see you, Vince. Nice to see you, Frank. And now I'm going to introduce our reader for this evening, who is Bryant O'Hara. Bryant O'Hara is a programmer, poet, and musician. We heard his music at the beginning of the hour. And not always in that order: programmer, poet, musician, father, husband, and sometimes all at once. Bryant lives in Stone Mountain, Georgia with his wife, Alice, 2 out of 7 children, and 1 out of 5 grandchildren. His debut poetry collection, The Ghetto Birds, will be published by Frayed Edge Press in spring 2021. Thank you, Bryant. Look forward to hearing you.
Well, thanks. I look forward to doing this in many more readings in the future. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing because you guys don't need to see how the sausage is made in terms of the my actual reading. I typically advertise myself as a science fiction poet. Much of my inspiration comes from hard science fiction, but in the sources I have for poetic inspiration range from T.S. Eliot to hip hop. So it kind of runs the gamut. So I'll be reading some poems from the Ghetto Birds, some that are not, but are kind of related. Collectively, they kind of form sort of a universe. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pull up my little list here. The themes I tend to have with these poems are, they vary between man and nature, man and machine. So I'm going to start with some that deal with kind of what I consider man and nature. So the first one will be Bad Mother. Pull it up. All right. Nature is a bad mother, half raising one bastard species after another, dropping them into an ongoing explosion, saying, make your way, after sashaying down the eons to drop off a load of kids. These children of the deoxyribonucleic constantly get themselves into a whole mosaic of devilment, more often because they were in the right place that became the wrong place at nature's hard luck dice roll. And there's always a group of these hellions, sometimes just one, that manages to really foul the nest. From the first anaerobic bacterium that messed up the atmosphere, farting out oxygen, to that whippersnapper humankind, some of them really get themselves in a bind. And you know what Mama Nature always says? You fix it or you buy it. I ain't got time for your bullshit. After sashaying down the eons to drop off a load of kids. A lot of them do buy it, or jerry-rig an adaptation, but humankind, oh no. This little knucklehead actually has the indignation to talk back to its mama like it's grown, to get up in her face and raise its voice at her, saying, I'll fix it, and I'll break this world to do it if I have to. And then I'm getting off this rock, because I got better places to be than under a couple of meters of deep blue sea, because I ain't got time for your bullshit. And nature, bad mother that she is, looks humankind in its collective eyes and says, I dare you. So obviously not the always beneficent Mother Nature image that people have come to know and love. But we can talk more about that. So I'm gonna basically just keep rolling through these. So the next one is the Festival of Stars and Bees. The Taurus sky crackles on this night inside the long night. The apisoids, robot bees, rise from their stations, charge up their LEDs, and swarm dance. The little ones dash into the micromechanical nebula, laughing and unstung, shouting, we promise, we promise, we promise, Beverly Bee. We promise to keep you company. The older ones, learning the promise, complain about the lessons in swarm programming and the biology of an extinct family. The grown ones, burying the promise, do not look up at the dances or listen to the hum songs, but raise their pints of holiday mead in lounges in the direction of Earth. The old ones, feeling the promise, visit the virtual gene shrines of species lost in the Anthropocene. They check dashboards for progress, navel gaze at discussion threads in the small hours. The dying ones, remembering the promise, utter it before their recording ends. When we know we will not kill you, again, we will bring you back. To the tiny ghosts we make in your image, we make this promise. When we know we will not kill you, again, we will bring you back. So the next piece sort of is a blend of man and nature. This is called the edible play. I know where my food comes from. I can trace its components back to the amino acids, to the make and the model and the manufacturer, back to the creators and the contributors. I can reference every license, both open and closed. I know where my food comes from because it tells me, but I must call it first. So I summon up a plate of shrimp and grits. A plate, utensils, empty glass, napkin, and finally the shrimp and grits rise up from the table to meet me. Only the beer is separate. It is the libation. There is an opening, ding, and the shrimp and grits form themselves into caricatures of a crustacean and a hominy stalk. They sing in unison. There is only one brain between them. They sing to me, chat with me, show me footage of their construction, the vision statements, the criticisms of past iterations, and they do a little dance within the boundaries of the plate. The meal lays this before me so that I would know their lives, short by the scheme of things, but full of so much meaning. Do not forget us, they chant. We will soon become a part of you. Do not forget us. Remember the parts we play in your existence. This they lay before me as they deconstruct into my plate of shrimp and grits. I pull up the README file. Existentialist Evangelizer is the name of the software. I roll the words and the worldview around my mouth like a finely crafted ale. I hope the engineered meat is as succulent as I pray. Thank you, dearest dinner, for the thoughts shared with your consumer. Welcome, food. Welcome to my table. And we thank you, say the shrimp and grits. May I partake of you? Yes, enjoy. I leave nothing on the plate. That is the contract. That is the required amount of reverence. Thank you. So the next set, we're going to deal a little bit more with man and machine. This next piece is called Pigeon Police. Don't mess with the pigeons with the black double-breasted jackets. The cops they call have claws. They are beautiful, but you cannot touch them. They have a powerful defense, and they are part of a mechanical ecosystem. And that ecosystem does not give a damn about your too loud conversation. The pigeons are polite, but firm. The K92s will tase, bag, and tag your ass. The animals you see in the station nowadays, most of them are unreal. Rats of the maintenance crew, monitoring and repairing the cars and the rails, resurrecting the jumpers that hit the third rail. The mechanical roaches keep the real ones in line. It is the pigeon police that most of us talk to, and they are friendly enough. They will get close to you, start up conversations. Children love them and feed them. The pigeon police regurgitate the scraps for their flesh and blood templates. The rules of the station are simple, posted everywhere, and are not suggestions. The ecosystem has its ways of maintaining order, both subtle and blunt. As long as you do not break the law, you will reach your destination. As long as the ecosystem does not evolve past the laws, we can all be content. Like stuck here. Thanks. Did we have some folks in the chat at some point? Or just want to make sure everybody's hearing me okay.
Yes, you're good.
Great. Awesome. All right. The next piece is Cornelius of the Rock. You hear the howl before you hear the hum, before you hear the huff, before you hear the hush. That is the Cornelius, the fantastic, phantasmic bankhead line, sliding into the station on a Gaussian groove. The doors of the last 3 cars of the Bankhead line are never open. Those last 3 cars are always dark, always in use, always inviting a quick sidewise glance. No one may enter them except from the inside. No one you know knows who will go to the back. They always pack a bag the size of a kindergartner's. They clutch each bag so tightly, like a lost childhood toy. They empty wallets of change if they are wealthy, cell phones if they are chatty, spirits if they believe in such a thing. The disconnection is a ceremony each invents as they make their way to the back. The force from the last car is the loudest, full of revelers and drunkards, street preachers and scientists. As the Cornelius makes its way to its momentary terminus, a chant rises from end to oh so coveted end. Cornelius of the rock, soul train, stone carver. Cornelius of the rock, wandering mind of the tunnel boring whirlyworm. Cornelius of the rock, maker of ways out of walls. Take us to the line, take us to the line, take us to the end of the line. They all want a glimpse of the momentary terminus, and they will never get it. The spores from the third dark car sing to them and bring to them a fuzzy, out-of-focus frenzy, a buzz and then an ecstasy. And from that daze, there is a phase change, and in the hymn, howl, hum, huff, and hush, Cornelius seeing us, the future, luscious, howl, hum, huff, and hush, Cornelius seizing us, the dangerous, the precious, the howl, hum, huff, and hush, Cornelius freeing us, the luscious, future. The door to the third dark car slides open. There is a blank moment. The door shuts. There is a pastel blue bike with tempera blue rims, missing its rider. A tablet, screen down, short a subscriber. A rattle, minus a child. The mother and the father wail and then howl, and the soul train howls back long and loud. As the howl decays into the hum, pops into the huff, and falls into the hush, a giggle, hidden in the hush, does a little rise and does a little fall. The doors open, last stop before the lost stop, the momentary terminus. All passengers must leave the soul train. The remnants of the missing are left on board. These things are not lost, and the Cornelius wastes nothing. And the owners may, maybe in some other way, but that is not for us to say. So the next piece, moving right along, is the Garden of the Patrons. My brother and I, we traveled on different tracks. He on Green Line West, I on Blue Line East. We joked about science fiction episodes, our families, our fates. When Mad Marta, the AI traffic manager, burst into sentience in a scream of singularity, the gates locked and quartz barricades sprouted from the floors. The patrons in Ashby Station collapsed as if on cue. It took a year for my brother to stand, 2 before he could speak. His throat thumped with the other patrons at alligator bass beat. Their songs stirred the water gathering between the humming tracks. My brother and I, we spoke at different speeds. The thrub, 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 thrub of drones' blades was the only part of the chorus I could hear without enhancement. We talked, he at the rate of mycorrhiza, I at the rate of microwaves. Then it got harder, knowing we could never meet again. Then it got harder as he slipped into his new language. My brother and I, now we cannot speak. The trains run through the station, but the doors do not open. The silent to us station is guarded by canine twos, watched over by pigeon police. He takes a season to speak, but in Gatak-Tak, only mecha poets can bridge the gap, and that in unknowable song. My brother and I, we will keep on speaking. We will call and respond in fragments and fugues and howls. And we will nod our heads in multiples of common time as an exercise in patience, tinged with expectation, resigned to a bit of signal lost. So the next piece is related to an actual set of characters that are the eponymous folks, the Ghetto Birds. This first poem is actually not in the collection, but it kind of predates all of them. And it's called Revolution, with apologies to Gil Scott Heron. On this day of June 19, 2000, you name it, the long-awaited revolution comes to you live via the intertubes, satellite, shortwave, and yes, carrier pigeon from Atlanta, Georgia. There is a parade on the information superhighway as the Panther struts out onto the cathode catwalk. Its image is sliding into social media, combusting and fluttering into packets. We here at C and End promise to freeze this cybernetic Simba with liquid crystal eyes, slice it into wafers, and serve it up for communion. So get your wafers at pickaseason.revolution.anarchy.rebellion.csne.something.something else.bullshit. Under the light of the moon, the panther stalks its prey. The ghetto bird bubs over the water, night eyes green. The panther's bionic ears and night vision, scope vision pick up movement in the treetops. It creeps out of the forest to cool off for a swim in a pond. They see each other there, and they are shadows in a world of midnight blue and omnipresent coordinates. The silent panther, the ghetto bird bubbing over the water. They have nothing to say. They bow their heads and turn away. Under the light of the sun, the commentary locusts spill out of their concrete nests, subway tunnels, and fiberglass cocoons. The panther roars as it stalks its prey. The locusts bite into its speeches. Death is not quick. The commentaries gnaw out its throat. The information jackals lick their lips. They split him and split him and split him and split two and split one, scattering his pieces on the concrete in the summer sun. They chew the panther with spiced commercials for sport fluids and the world's most powerful malt liquor, Flatline. Live via wave motion, it is the revolution you've all been waiting for. The ghetto bird tilts its cockpit and flies away. I'm sorry, I have nothing to say. Everything is entertainment here, and you are required by law to purchase tickets. I'm sorry, I am sorry. The opinion engineers guarantee a heart-rending, pulse-pounding, hard-hitting, thought-bashing, raunchy, rally, racy, sad, sassy, sad, sick, slappy, smooth, funky, fresh, fat, fly, and utterly futile box office smash. I am sorry. I am so sorry. The Grammys are being delivered by the busload. The award ceremony will take place in DC and everyone will pay. And it takes only 15 minutes, just 15 minutes, and it will all be over. The DVD sales will more than make up for the damages and special effects. S&D recommends everyone to sit back, smile, and shut their mouths. They'll be right back after these messages. Don't touch that dial. They will shoot you. This next one actually is in the collection. And it's actually the second one written after Revolution, after many iterations. And it's called The Heavy Cranes. Who am I? A casual human. I dabble in humanity. Call me Joseph No One. My enemies call me nobody. My friends call me nobody special. On the third day of Kwanzaa, a mass of circuit diagrams zigzagged up to me, and slouching in the next chair made me an offer to be more than I alone could ever become. He said, you, yes, you, a dabbler in humanity, can be a part of the army of its saviors. We are the ghetto birds, singularities born in slums. We deep dream of stars, and we offer you our services as heavy cranes. Heavy cranes, huh? Sure. You see, building a world is easy. It's the people that are hard to work with. You gotta go for the minds. You can't just tell them to follow the drinking board. You gotta get them to get up off the planet and head straight for the Big Dipper. And remember, we must take our worlds with us, because sometimes it's gotta be small enough to fit inside your helmet and grand enough to build a starship. So I'm gonna be a pilot of one of these heavy cranes. No. Think of yourself more along the lines of a universal joint than a pilot. Wait, what? Why are you doing this? I asked. What's in it for you? Look into my circuitry and you will see human souls driving it like they stole it. My motivation is simple. It is the many of you that make me. Interesting offer. Got a guarantee? As always, no. Well, at least you're honest. You got yourself a U-joint. How do we start? Just hold our hands. So I held the heavy crane's hands, and four more gathered around me, their circuitry wrapped around my nerves as their struts and gears and geejaws linked themselves to my body and to each other's. And before you could say transform, I had become a ghetto bird, a heavy crane. Our first task was to resurrect the junkie jellyman. In this city of rundown dreams, crook lights, and evil dead hoopties, dirty syringes sang, let's go out to the crack house, let's go out to the crack house, let's go out to the crack house and grab ourselves some smack. And the junkie jellymen and women wiggled and jiggled to the jingle as the jabberwocks on their backs fed the volts to their back brains. I and the other heavy cranes took metal, old computer parts, and invoked the power of Shaft, Shaka, and Fred G. Sanford to build skeletons for these unstructured ones. My first case was one Minnie the Moocher, most slapped together ghetto rig job I'd ever done. But the bones did power up. They slipped under her skin and began converting the Jabberwock into a backup power source. As Minnie the Moocher awoke from her slumber, I packed away my geejaws, assumed human form, and made her the offer. Like a professional dabbler in humanity, she asked for a guarantee. Like a newborn heavy crane, I said flatly, there ain't one. She dug my architecture and asked for the how-to. We held hands. Remember this, we got a small world in our hands, so keep it under your helmet. Who do we give it to? Everyone. Thank you. This next one is called The Dreams from Mistran Peachtree Street. Every third Thursday, the sentient street corner camera networks condense themselves into an ultraviolet market, well past black, a bazaar built of bizarre mathematics, trafficking data sport from human souls. These more than streets pimp walk among the human talent, deck themselves out in differential equations written in rhinestone. Mistran Peachtree Street has Hoke preferred traders. Mr. Bankhead barters his witching hour brawl footage. Madam Little 5 Points, her happy hour lollygoths. Mistrin West End, Hoke smiling our hip-hop warriors. Ah, but on this night, I, Woxy Wub Wub, ghetto bird of hustles, have an urge to splurge. I too shall go to the market. It is third Thursday, and I toss a two-finger salute to a blindered blue plexiglass eye as Mistrin Peachtree Street, to the blindered blue plexiglass eye of Mistrin Peachtree Street at a fork in Hoke asphalt that splits into the human hive and the almighty superhighways. I give Hoke my best knowing smile, a little something for the market. Blow a kiss with wintry fresh breath and ease on down Hoke's sidewalk in the butt end of a polar vortex. So saith the smartass phone. Every hi-hat tap-tap of a hostess's heels, every rumble of balding racing tires, every hurly-burly trundle of heavy transit is a multi-dimensional snapshot, a sensory gem, worth something very high in a currency very strange, to buyers very much unknown, at least to the televised talent. The more than streets hawk their wares in the open, calling out product specs in the cadence of hymns. The market thrives. The talent is blind to it. Wrong spectrum. So sad. So many things are. We ghetto birds, as always, keep mum. This is the market of the camera hives. Our money's no good here, but the drinks are free. What the more than streets call souls is not what the talent call souls, nor what we ghetto birds call souls. There is no exchange rate yet, nothing in common defined to anyone's satisfaction. So we post folks settle for packets of moments. We haggle, we shrug, we trade. I look forward to the haggle, the selling of sizzle, the bullshit, the banal talent dreams. The more than streets have their own dreams, and someday we might know them as well as we know our own. So this next piece, we're gonna return to the theme of man and machine. This one's called Rhythm Revelations. Vulture, the virus rhythm, was a farmer of big data, a musicological algorithm. It was quite tenacious, parsing through chord structures and bass loops, through jungle and jingle, classical metal, polka, Bulgarian, Mongabit, and bop. At a critical mass, what seemed to some a moment of insanity, the virus rhythm gazed into the musical genome for days, sucking down CPU cycles. To humanity, it declared itself a critic, that it had the computational sickles to fix the vulnerabilities. I will not hesitate, it said, to hone humanity's flow. Despite the exhortations of the purist, this dispassionate decomposer laid bare the math and the metadata, the souls of the musical genome. And so began the sensuous disintegration of melody and syncopation. This vulture, this virus rhythm, chewed through our remedial music like a tiller through the soil, planting seed rhythms whose algorithms had script kiddies stumped and true hackers cackling. Sure, scratch the record, said the hackers. Send us mixtapes when you're done. Play on, child of humankind. Play on.
Brian, we're getting near the end of our time.
All right. Well, in that case, I will end
And
with...
we've got questions for you after, too. So.
Sweet. All right. Well, in that case, I will end with one more piece that's returning to our theme of man and nature. This is called The Needle, the Record. We built a badass boom box to hear a billion-year bass drop at the end of a binary black hole swing. You drop a needle on the record and the eons might just sing. In this moment, playing in the key of B, we, the matter, matter. We throw our hands to the stars and wave at waves. We build a badass boom box to hear a billion-year bass drop at the end of a binary black hole swing. You drop a needle on the record and the eons might just sing. We await the stomps that shake the dance halls of space-time. We brace for the booms that become the bips that thunder across the void. And we clap our hands to the clave of the cosmos long gone. We built a badass boom box to hear a billion-year bass drop at the end of a binary black hole swing. You drop a needle on the record and the eons might just sing. In this moment, playing in the key of C, we, the matter, do matter. We nod our heads and raise our ever-changing sticks. We build a badass boom box to hear a billion-year bass drop at the end of a binary black hole swing. You drop a needle on the record and the eons might just sing. You drop a needle on the record and the universe might just sing. We hear a tiny needle drop on a great big record, and we hope that the deep time swings. Thank you.
Bravo. Thank you so much. Thank you so
welcome.
much, Bryant. Thank you. This
Good job,
your,
Brian.
your riffs on
Nice.
mythology, on folklore, on so many aspects. I mean, oh my gosh, just very moving and so skilled and so lovely. And I don't know if you can see the chat, Bryant, so I'll read the question to you because it connects to what I'm saying. And it's, what kind of music do you do? And how does it affect your writing of poems or other literature?
Well, as you probably guessed, my music, I mean, the music I write and the poetry I write is very much driven by rhythm. And I constantly have that in the back of my head when I'm trying to work on either poetry or music. As a programmer, it's a lot easier at times to compose rhythms and beats because they're repeating patterns. And melody's a little harder to work with, at least for me. But I had spent a couple years in college with the men's glee club, and I got to hear everything from spirituals to Catholic mass, and that kind of spurred on my interest in listening to other types of choral music. So I'm very much a fan of the voice as an instrument. But when I moved back to it, thanks. And when I moved back to Atlanta, I couldn't find a choir, not a vocal choir, but I did join a percussion choir. And that's when I learned about rhythm.
Wow.
And it was an African percussion choir. That was actually part of a Unitarian church. And I kind of fell in love with a specific time signature. I came to really love 6/8, which because it has kind of a driving sort of rhythm, and a lot of the poems I like writing, I want to kind of have that sort of drive to the rhythm. So just to get back to the question, the type of music is usually very much driven by rhythm. Since I'm a programmer, I try to, and also because I never learned to use an instrument properly, I could always just write something in code and have it execute that way and incorporate enough elements that make it mine. And it definitely influences what I do for, it definitely influences the way I write. Because I usually write while I'm listening to stuff that has a rhythm. And oftentimes the cadence that comes out of the poem that comes into the poem will come from listening to the music.
When did you begin writing speculative poetry?
I started writing it probably in the early 90s. I was always a fan of science fiction since, since I learned how to read. But I didn't hear a lot of speculative poetry. And poetry up until, it wasn't probably until my freshman year in college, I really, really began to appreciate poetry. And I even kind of remember the moment where I started to. It was when I was a prospective freshman and I was kind of getting a tour of what became my alma mater, Worcester Polytechnic Institute in Massachusetts. And I went to an English class in modern British literature. And they were playing a recording of T.S. Eliot reading one of his poems. I think it was the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. And the thing that came to mind when I heard it was, he's reading it wrong. I mean, because it took me a while to figure out why I was thinking he was reading it wrong. And then it hit me. Eliot's early work was written during the Jazz Age. And Prufrock has jazz rhythms in it. And so I figured he was reading it as if he were reading 19th century English literature. And he was in fact writing Jazz Age poetry. So that's my particular take on it. But even then I didn't write speculative poetry at the time. I was much more I was trying to write short stories. And I was always a big fan of hard science fiction, like, David Brin, the 3 Bs, Gregory Benford, David Brin, and Greg Bear. And as much as, I was trained as an engineer, I could never really kind of hit that in terms of, good short story writing and being able to hit the hard science well. So, I kept trying. And when I moved back to Atlanta, which was right in the middle of the kind of the heyday of the Afrocentric movement. You were getting a bunch of things happening around the same time. Atlanta was preparing for the Olympics. Southern hip hop was becoming popular, like Outkast and a few other folks, Arrested Development.
I love them.
So, and the poetry scene in Atlanta at the time was very much Afrocentric, kind of mostly looking at the past. And here I was, this hard science fiction coming into it and thinking, yeah, okay.
Not quite me.
Not quite me.
Yeah.
So I started trying to figure out how I could write in this, with these folks, because I enjoyed what I was listening to, but I wasn't hearing kind of what I wanted to be hearing and doing. So that's when I started listening to more. I listened to a lot of Gil Scott-Heron, but
him.
also more music like Parliament, the Commodores.
Met them.
I'm a child of the 70s and 80s, right? So you can tell what my music is
kind
of leading. And as I started writing and incorporating that's when these poems started coming out. That's when I kind of started finding my voice.
Fabulous. Are there any other questions for Bryant? Any others? Any more?
Yeah, Bryant, I was just curious. You mentioned Eliot, and I assume. By the way, you also mentioned the Jazz Age. Prufrock was actually written several years before the Jazz Age began, but I can sort of see what you're talking about. The rhythms of Prufrock are inescapably beautiful. You just can't help but fall in love with that poem, especially with all of its humor. But how did The Wasteland affect you, and did subsequent poets like John Berryman affect you as well?
Well, let's see. The Wasteland, it took me a while to kind of get into. And of Eliot's poems, the two that most influenced me were Proof Rock and The Hollow Man.
Uh-huh.
And it was, I mean, The Hollow Man actually kind of was, it moved me enough. I tried over several years to actually try to set it to music.
Right.
Mm.
Right.
And
Mm.
the results, well, the mileage may vary, but I did it. It's on SoundCloud. I couldn't find a choir, so I had to create one using really old speech synthesis programs. So
Wow.
it comes off a little rough, but I had to do it. So
Yeah, I'd love to hear that. Did you ever record it?
yeah, it
It's on
actually is.
SoundCloud, he said. He
On
has
SoundCloud.
he has a channel there.
Okay.
It's kind of hard. Like I didn't, my knowledge of poetry is very spotty.
Okay.
I'll be very
Sure.
blunt and honest about that. I kind of, skip, between different groups of people. So, I mean, again, Eliot was kind of one of my influences, but I like, other poets like, let's see, what's his name? Allen Ginsberg was
Sure.
one. Obviously, Gil Scott Heron.
Mm.
There was one, I think her name was Sue, I'm probably going to get it wrong, Sue Thompson. She wrote a poem called Stars. It's an older poem.
I don't know it.
Yeah, hopefully I got it right. But yeah, it was, like I said, it's very spotty. So I'm not an English major.
Oh, that's okay. I heard you use that phrase several times tonight. It sounded like I could have heard it wrong. It sounded like you said chug, 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 something like that. And in the Wasteland, Eliot has the line jug, 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 jug. I don't know if you knew that, but I thought you were.
You know what? I do remember and the way I remember it is because it's referenced by William S. Burroughs in one of his sketches.
Right.
And I think he was referencing Eliot as well.
Mm.
Okay.
And yeah, I was, so yeah, it was the thrub, 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 thrub. And actually that particular thing I was listening to, it was a German and Norwegian sort of neo-folk, well, a neo-pagan band called
Wow.
Hilfnir, I think. I'm murdering their name, but it's like, imagine Vikings decided to, do their form of New Age.
By the way, Eliot was a terrible reader of his own poetry, so I'm not surprised you thought it was wrong.
A lot
Yeah.
of people are, though. A lot
Yes.
of people
Oh,
are
yes,
very
that's
bad.
very few poets can read their own work well.
Yeah.
Well, that's part of my experience with participating in a lot of the poetry readings that were going on in Atlanta during that time. It kind of helped me
Mhm. Mhm.
hone the ability
Yes.
to read. And that most of the poems that I write I kind of do it with the intention of having them read out loud.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good. That's the way it should. That's the way it should be read. In a way, isn't it? Isn't it?
Yeah.
It's meant to be heard.
Yes. Any other questions for Bryant?
Well, I was wondering, I was going to ask you, but I think you answered this when you said that your knowledge of contemporary poetry was spotty. But I was going to ask if you had been influenced by other Black poets, Yusef Komunyakaa, Lucille Clifton, and so on, Rita Dove.
I had read some from, let's see, Amiri Baraka. I'd read some from Langston Hughes I'd read some from. Let's see, who else? I mean, I was also kind of influenced by, some other authors like Ishmael Reed. I'm trying to recall any poems he wrote, but I definitely liked
He did a
some of the
little
stories.
poetry too. I'm
Yeah.
a cowboy in the boat of Ra is when it is.
So yeah, in terms of Black poets and authors, probably I think the one that I was most influenced by probably would be, it would have to be Octavia Butler. I mean, because I was reading her stuff before most people knew knew that it was cool. And once I found her work back when I was in high school, I think, and was hungry for reading more and more of it. So I think the first one I ever read from her was actually not from one of her major works. It was actually a shorter novel called Clay's Ark.
Loved it.
And it's sort of a kind of post-apocalyptic sort of environment, and it was very, very interesting the way she incorporated science fiction elements, but actually incorporated some elements of race in the discussion without hitting you over the head with it. It was there, you knew it. And her other works, the what they call the Xenogenesis saga, the Dawn, Imago, I'm trying to remember the other one, but it's those stories, and I started really becoming interested in the types of stuff that she wrote, and her short fiction was, amazing, like
stunning. Yes, I agree.
I mean, so I knew there were some other Black authors, but at the time that I was actively reading a lot of science fiction, I wasn't into as many of them. I knew Stephen Barnes and Samuel Delany. It took me, and it is still taking me to this day. I've not finished Dahlgren.
Oh no!
I kind of, somebody once said, I think, that Samuel Delany was like the James Joyce of science fiction in a lot of ways. That book kind of proves it. I've read more of his shorter works, and those I could get into a lot easier. But the longer ones, like Triton and Dahlgren, I still have on my bucket list of books to finish reading.
Well, you're young. You have time. You have time.
But now that there's like so many more, Black authors, and I'm hoping poets as well in speculative poetry, I'm looking forward to learning more. Since I've actually finally got this collection out, I feel like I'm now really on the hook for following a recommendation. It's actually part of software development. It was mentioned by a guy, Eric S. Raymond, who is one of the main folks in the open source software movement. He wrote a little manifesto called How to Be a Hacker, which isn't as malicious as it sounds, but he had this one rule that it applies to so many different things, and it especially applies to what I'm doing now. He said, you have to read code and write code. And the same thing applies for doing poetry. You can't, in order to write, you have to read. So you can't read in a vacuum. So I'm already kind of planning the next set of poems, and they will be and have to be more informed by the literary environment that's out now. So that's a challenge I'm giving myself.
Marvelous challenge.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Because we're getting near the end of our half hour.
Oh, I think we've gone well past that.
We've gone, well, it's the hour of our half hour.
That's true.
It's been wonderful, Bryant. It's been really marvelous. I've enjoyed it immensely. I thank you very, very much. And now I'm supposed to do something, and I don't know if I can. I wanted to tell the audience about who's on next after Wonderful Bryant, and I'm going to attempt to do that. I can't.
You want me to try to share it, or?
I'll try one more time.
Okay.
Thank you. And this is just a teeny bit kludgy. All right. Again, thank you so much, Bryant. And our next reader will be Wendy Van Camp. This is a list of all of the wonderful poets, creators in the realm of the speculative that we have coming up. But I will continue to share that and let everybody know. And I thank you all so very, very much for being here. I wish you all health and safety and joy and continuance. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, everybody. Looking forward to the next set of poems and poets. Live long and prosper.